today's class we'll be looking into the TLS, that is the transport layer security. Previously we have looked in detail regarding the SSL, that is the secure sockets layer, and TLS is considered to be the current form of the internet standard, which is a more higher version compared to the SSL. Now in this tutorial we will also look into the difference between SSL and TLS. Almost all the parameters which are there in the SSL are also available in the TLS, but there could be some of the features, additional features, which are provided in the TLS. So firstly, the TLS is an IETF standardization initiative. IETF basically stands for the Internet Engineering Task Force, which is one of the leading internet standards body. And the goal of this particular standardization is to produce an internet standard version of the SSL. So TLS is defined as a proposed internet standard in the RFC 5246. RFC is the request for comments, and this RFC 5246 basically similar to that of the SSL version 3. If you look at the TLS record format, the TLS record format is same as that of the SSL record format. So here in the figure you can observe that this is the record format of the SSL, and more about this we have specified as to how we computed the MAC, how we obtain this encryption, how we obtain the content type, major version, minor version, and compressed length, and how this entire record format was formed we have already seen in the SSL. So the TLS record format is exactly same as the SSL record format, and the fields that are there in the header you can see here, right? So these fields are also having the same meaning as that of the SSL. So in the header you can see the content type, major version, minor version, and the compressed length, but the only difference here is in the case of the version values. So if you look at the TLS, in the TLS the major version is 3, whereas the minor version is also 3. Whereas in the SSL major version was 3 and the minor version was 0, but here it is major and minor version both are having a value 3. Then coming to the message authentication code. So the two differences between the SSL version 3 and the TLS MAC schemes, that is the message authentication code schemes, is that the MAC algorithm itself and the scope of the MAC calculation. So in this case the TLS makes use of HMAC algorithm. So this algorithm and the code has been specified here. So this HMAC basically is a specific type of the MAC, that is the message authentication code, which is involving a cryptographic hash function and a secret cryptographic key. So if you look at this particular code here, it is specified in terms of HMAC. So H corresponds to the embedded hash function, M corresponds to the message input to the HMAC, K plus corresponds to the secret key which will be padded with zeros on the left, so that the result will be equal to the block length of the hash code, either for MD5, or if we make use of SHA-1 hash algorithm, then the block length will be equal to 512 bits. Next we have IPAD. So this IPAD basically corresponds to a decimal number 36, hexadecimal number 36, which will be repeated 64 times if we make use of this if we make use of this IPAD, okay, this IPAD corresponds to 00110110, which corresponds to 36 in hexadecimal, which will be repeated 64 times, which is equivalent to that of 512 bits. Whereas this OPAD, that is the padding that we are going to add, will correspond to 5C in hexadecimal, which will be repeated 64 times. Again, this will be corresponding to 512 bits. So if you see here, the value of the hexadecimal 36 and 5C is almost same as that of the SSL that we have seen earlier. So the MAC calculation and the padding bits in hexadecimal are the same. Now, the SSL version 3 uses the same algorithm, except that the padding bits are there, no? These padding bits, or I can say padding byte if I have to consider the entire thing, will be concatenated with the secret key rather than being XORed with the secret key, which will be padded to the block length. So the level of security will be the same in both the cases, whether it is SSL version 3 or whether it is the TLS. Now let us see how we do the MAC calculation for the TLS. So here the MAC calculation mainly includes the fields which are MAC write sequence, secret sequence number, TLS compressed type, TLS compressed version, TLS compressed length, and TLS compressed fragment. So all these MAC calculation includes the same parameters that we have seen earlier. If you can remember the message authentication code, there we had divided the application data into fragments, compressed, added the MAC, encrypted, then appended the SSL record header. So in this case also, here we'll be performing the fragmentation on the application data. We are going to compress it, then we are going to add the MAC, encrypt it, and then we are going to append the TLS record header, which we had seen previously. So almost all the parameters, if you see in this MAC calculation code, are similar to the one which we have seen in the SSL. So here the MAC calculation covers all the fields which are covered by the SSL version 3 calculation, plus it also includes the field which is the TLS compressed dot version, which is the version of the protocol which we will be using. So this is the difference between, very minute difference between the MAC calculation of the TLS and the SSL. Now coming to the pseudo-random function. Mainly the TLS makes use of a pseudo-random function which can be abbreviated as PRF, and this is mainly used to expand the secret into blocks of data for the purpose of key generation or validation. So the main objective is to make use of a relatively small shared secret value, but to generate longer blocks of data in a way that it is secure from all kinds of attacks which can be made on the hash functions and on the MAC. So if you look at the PRF is mainly based on the data expansion function. So you can see this data expansion function can be computed in this particular manner. So here this particular figure shows you the TLS function, that is P hash, as to how it is being computed. So here you have the data expansion function which uses a single hash function to expand a secret key and a seed into an arbitrary quantity of the output. So this function is considered, as you can see, is considered as a multiple section function. So this is one section, this is another section, this is the third section, and it will go on. So it's a multiple section function where each section will create one hash value. It will create one hash value which is been specified here. So this is one hash value, this is the second hash value, the third hash value, and so on. So each section will create one hash value, and each section makes use of a HMAC, a secret, and a seed. So the second seed that is there, this will be the output of the first HMAC of the previous function. So the second seed will be the output of the first HMAC of the previous section, and it will go on. So this will produce one hash value, this section will produce another hash value, and so on. And you can see each block will give you the length of the hash size. Now let us look into the code of the data expansion function. So if you see here, the data expansion function can be represented in terms of p_hash secret comma seed in this form: HMAC_hash secret a1, HMAC hash secret a of 2, HMAC_hash secret a of 3. Now all of this is generated. If you see, a of 1 is the one which is generated from the first section. If you see the block diagram, this is generated from the first, this is generated from the second, and this is generated from the third section. So all of these have to be concatenated with the seed. So a of 0 can be considered as a seed, a of I can be considered as HMAC_hash. So the data expansion function mainly, if I have to briefly tell you, makes use of the HMAC algorithm, which can be either MD5 or it can be an SHA1 has an underlying hash function. We have seen that hash function can be either MD5 or SHA. So same thing can be used in the HMAC algorithm. Then this p_hash, that is the code that we have seen previously, that is this code can be iterated many times to produce the required quantity of data. Now for example, say I want to generate 64 bytes of data. If I am going to make use of an hash algorithm which is of SHA1, this will have to iterate 4 times, producing 80 bytes of data. Whereas if I am going to make use of p_MD5, that is the hash algorithm is MD5, again this has to iterate 4 times, producing exactly 64 bytes of data. Now you might be wondering, if it has to be iterated 4 times, how this produces 80 bytes and this produces 64 bytes of data. Now generally what we consider is that for SHA1, if I am considering SHA1 algorithm, okay, so if hash function is SHA1, so this SHA1 usually produces 20 bytes of data. Okay, that is a single SHA1 produces 20 bytes of data. So if SHA1 produces single SHA function produces 20 bytes of data, when this is iterated 4 times, so 20 into 4 will be equal to 80 bytes. Now what is asked to us is that we need to generate only 64 bytes of data. So if it is 20 into 4 is 80 bytes, the remaining 16 bytes, because we need to generate only 64, right? So 80 minus 16 will give us 64 bytes. So the remaining 16 bytes will have to be discarded. Whereas if you consider the case of the hash algorithm MD5, then the MD5 produces 16 bytes of data. So single hash MD5 algorithm produces 16 bytes of data. When this is being iterated 4 times, 16 into 4 will be equal to 64 bytes. So this is exactly the same as what we wanted, that is to generate 64 bytes of data. So this is the difference between using SHA algorithm or the MD5 hash algorithm. If you use SHA1, then because a single SHA hash algorithm generates 20 bytes, so 20 into 4 when iterated gives you 80 bytes, whereas MD5, because it gives you 16 bytes of data when iterated 4 times, gives you exactly 64 bytes of data. So usually what happens is that one important thing that you need to note here is that the iteration, that is each iteration will involve 2 executions of the HMAC. So each of this will in turn involve another 2 executions of the underlying hash algorithm. So in order to make the PRF as secure as possible, PRF meaning the pseudo random function, as secure as possible, it will have to use 2 hash algorithms in a way that should guarantee its security if either of the algorithm remains secure. So next we will define the PRF, the pseudo random function, and this is defined as the PRF secret, label and seed, which is equal to P underscore hash S1 comma label concatenated with the seed. So this PRF takes as an input the secret value, an identifying label and a seed value, and will produce an output of arbitrary length. So that is what is being shown even in this particular algorithm. So every PRF will take as an input a secret value, it will take an identifying label with it and a seed value, and will produce an output of an arbitrary length. Now coming to the various alert codes of the TLS. So TLS mainly supports all of the alert codes which are defined by the SSL version 3, with an exception of no certificates. And there are a number of additional codes that are defined in the TLS, and most of these codes are considered to be fatal. So let us look into these additional codes. So first we have the record overflow. So this one basically is a TLS record which was received with a payload, that is a ciphertext payload, whose length was exceeding 2 to the power 14 plus 2048 bytes, and or it can be another situation wherein the ciphertext decrypted to the length of greater than 2 to the power 14 plus 1024 bytes. Kindly excuse me, this should have been 2 to the power 14 plus 2048 bytes, and even this should have been 2 to the power 14 plus 1028 bytes. So this was 2 to the power 14, and this also was supposed to be 2 to the power 14. So when the ciphertext length was exceeded by this byte value, then we had an alert message called as the record overflow. Next is unknown underscore CA. So here a valid certificate chain or a partial chain was received, but the certificate was not accepted because the certificate could not be located or could not be matched with the known trusted certificate authority. So if it was not matching with the known or trusted certificate authority, we get a unknown underscore CA alert. The third one is access denied alert, which will be received when a valid certificate is received, but when the access control was applied, the sender decided not to proceed with the negotiation. So the sender, if he decides not to proceed with the negotiation, we get the access denied option. The next one is decode error. So this will be a message which could not be decoded because either a field was out of its specified range or the length of the message was incorrect. Protocol underscore version. So the protocol version of the client attempted to negotiate is recognized but not supported. If it is not supported, the protocol version is not supported, you get the protocol underscore version alert. Next you have the message that is insufficient security. So this will be returned instead of a handshake failure when a negotiation has failed specifically because the server requires ciphers more secure than those supported by the client. Then we have the internal error. So an internal error is an unrelated to the, it is basically an internal error which is unrelated to the peer or the correctness of the protocol, making it impossible to continue. Next we have decrypt error. So here an handshake cryptographic operation field, including being unable to verify a signature or decrypt a key message or validate a finished message, was obtained. Then the remaining alerts will include the following, that is user cancelled, and this will be received when this handshake is being cancelled for some reason unrelated to a protocol failure. So the last message, that is the no negotiation message, this will be sent in a response to a hello request or by the server in response to the client hello after the initial handshaking. So either of these messages would normally result in a renegotiation, but this alert usually indicates that the sender is not able to renegotiate, and usually this is considered as one of the warnings. Now in additional to this, there is one more alert which is called as the unsupported extension, unsupported underscore extension. So this alert message basically is sent by the client that will receive an extended server hello containing a extension which is not in the corresponding client hello. So this is another type of an alert message. So these are the additional alert codes which are provided in the TLS in comparison to the SSL version 3. Now there are other differences also when you talk in terms of the TLS and the SSL, and one of them is the cipher suits. Basically the cipher suits define the encryption and the hashing functions that will be used by the connection once the handshake concludes, as well as the key exchange method used during the handshake. Now there are several small differences between the cipher suits which is available for the SSL and the TLS. So the first one that we have here is in terms of the key exchange, wherein the TLS supports all the key exchange techniques of the SSL version 3 with the exception of Forteza. Forteza is not supported here. And when it comes to symmetric encryption algorithm, TLS includes all the symmetric encryption algorithms which are found in the SSL, again in this case except for Forteza. Now coming to the client certificate types, in the TLS client authentication, the client, that is the browser, will use a certificate to authenticate itself during the TLS handshake. So when asking for the client authentication, this server will send a list of all the trusted certificate authorities to the client. The client will use this list to choose a client certificate that is trusted by the server. So TLS mainly defines the following certificate types to be requested in the certificate request message, such as RSA sign, DSS underscore sign, RSA fixed underscore DH, and DSS underscore fixed underscore DH. Now all these are defined in the SSL version 3, but in addition SSL version 3 also includes the RSA ephemeral underscore DH, DSS underscore ephemeral DH, and Forteza underscore KEA, that is KEA. If you look at the ephemeral Diffie-Hellman, this involves signing the Diffie-Hellman parameters with either RSA or the DSS. But for the TLS, the RSA sign and DSS sign types are used for that function. And a separate signing type is not needed to sign a Diffie-Hellman parameter. So again, main important thing is that TLS will not include the Forteza scheme. Okay, so we have seen the differences in terms of cipher suits, client certificate types. There is another difference in terms of certificate and verify and finished messages. So in the TLS, certificate underscore verify message will make use of the MD5 and SHA1 hashes, and these will be calculated only over the handshake messages. Whereas if you look at the SSL version 3, the hash calculation will also be included, and the master secret and the pads also will be used in the calculation. So these fields do not require any additional security. Now when it comes to the finished message, that is this one, in the SSL version 3, the finished message in the TLS will be the same as the SSL, and this finished message in the TLS is a hash based on the shared master secret. So along with that, it is also based on the previous handshake messages and a label that will identify the client or the server. So the calculation is little different. So if you look for the TLS, we can compute it as PRF master secret finish label MD5 handshake messages concatenated with SHA1 handshake messages. So both the hash algorithms are being used, that is MD5 and SHA1. So in this case, this finished label basically corresponds to the string that is client finished for the client, and it will be server finished for the server. Now coming to the cryptographic computations in the TLS. So here the pre-master secret is calculated in the same way like the SSL, and TLS mainly uses the PRF, that is the pseudo random function, to create the master secret from the pre-master secret. And this is being achieved by using the pre-master secret as the secret and the string, that is the master secret, as a label, and concatenation of the client random number and the server random number, which will be used as the seed. So the form of TLS calculation is little different from the SSL version 3, which is specified here. Next, we need to look into the calculation of the key block material. So if you look at the algorithm, that is the calculation of the master secret, this algorithm will be performed until 48 bytes of pseudo random outputs are produced. So next is the calculation of the key block material. So here the TLS will use the pseudo random function to create the key material from the master secret, and the secret is the master secret, the label is the key expansion. So you can see secret is the master secret, the label is the string key expansion, and the seed is the concatenation of the server random number and the client random number. So this key block material calculation will be done until the output is generated. So as with the case of the SSL version 3, the key block is a function of the master secret and the client and the server random numbers. The client and the server random numbers. The last part, which will give us the difference between the SSL and the TLS, is the padding. So if you look at the SSL, the padding here is added prior to the encryption of the user data, and this will correspond to the minimum amount required so that the total size of the data to be encrypted is a multiple of cipher's block length. Whereas in the case of the TLS, a padding can be any amount that results in a total size that is a multiple of cipher block length, and there is a limit to this. It can go up to a maximum of 255 bytes. So as an example, if I have to tell you, if the plain text or the compressed text, if compression is being used, plus the MAC plus the padding is obtained at the end, and if the plain text was 79 bytes, then the padding can be either 1 byte, 9 bytes, 17 bytes, or it can go up to 249. We have not limited to 255 in this case, but we have seen that it is within 255. Okay, so the padding can be 1, 9, 17 up to 249. Just that we are ensuring that it is in terms of bytes, right? So it is multiple of the cipher block length. So if you want to go for even more complex type of padding, then you can go for a variable length padding. If you want to provide security from the attacks which are based on the analysis of lengths of the exchanged messages. So even variable length padding can be used in the case of the TLS. So this is the difference between the TLS and the SSL, that is version 3, that we have seen earlier.